Please welcome to the stage for a conversation on public safety and justice, Chairwoman Teri Gobin of the Tulalip tribes, Chairman Peter Yucupicio of the Pascua Yaqui tribe, Associate Attorney General Vanita Gupta, United States Department of Justice, Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, United States Department of Homeland Security, Secretary Deb Haaland, United States Department of the Interior. This discussion will be moderated by Bob Anderson, Solicitor, United States Department of the Interior.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. It's great to be here with you today, and we've got an awesome panel to have a really important discussion. I'll get into that a little bit more, but let me start by introducing our panelists who came from farthest away, and I'll start out with Chairwoman Teri Gobin from the Tulalip tribes. She's been there at a long time at Tulalip in many different capacities in the government, starting out as a secretary and receptionist, working in various commercial enterprises, both on and off the reservation, marina, port director, and head of the Taro office. She's currently the chairwoman, and we welcome you, Chairwoman Gobin. Next is Chairman Peter Yucupicio of Pascua Yaqui tribe in Arizona. He's been serving the tribal government as an elected official for 6 four-year terms, 4 of them as the chairman. He's also a cultural leader within the community and brings tremendous experience with the issues that we're going to discuss today to the table. Immediately to my left is Vanita Gupta, the Associate Attorney General. She's the 3rd ranking official at the Justice Department. She oversees divisions that are really important to the Department of Interior and to Indian tribes, the Environment Division, the Civil Rights Division, and the Tax Division and the Civil Division. We were chatting backstage, and Vanita, like me, has a lot of experience suing the government, and we bring that experience to our jobs every day and sort of understand the issues that are coming before our departments. So thank you, Vanita. Next is our Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas. He's the first Latino and immigrant to be the confirmed Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. He's got 30 years as a distinguished practicing lawyer and in both public and private practice. He served as Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security in the Obama administration. He's an expert on human trafficking and immigration law issues. So thank you, Secretary Mayorkas, for joining us today. Our last individual, I'm not sure if she's been introduced to you before, but she's my client, and I'm wonderful. It's just wonderful to be here with Secretary Deb Haaland. And Secretary, you told me not to read your long bio, so I won't. But thank you for coming, and thank you so much for hosting this wonderful event. All right, so we'll get right into the meat of it here. We all know that public safety in Indian country is a complex web of Indian treaties, federal statutes, state laws sometimes, and many, many Supreme Court decisions that conflict with each other and create an incredibly complex situation within Indian country. As of late, the last 20 and 30 years, we've come to really notice and come to terms what's been happening for a long time, the missing and murdered Indigenous persons. And I think a lot of our young people have brought this issue forward into the attention of our leadership. And a year ago at this conference, virtually, President Biden signed Executive Order 14053 that took official note from the White House of this issue and directed various departments to get to work on the important issues raised by the MMIP question. So let's get into our first question. We'll start with Secretary Haaland, AG Gupta, and Secretary Mayorkas. Tell us what your departments have done to address the MMIP epidemic. What steps you have taken in response to the President's EO? Secretary Haaland?
Thank you so much, Bob. And I just, thank you, Bob. Thank you. Bob leads us so incredibly well here at the Department of the Interior. I know so many of you have known him for a very long time. Just know that he is dedicated and so incredibly smart. So thank you, Bob, for the work that you do here. I'm so proud to serve alongside you. I just want to say, and we've said this over and over again yesterday and today, it's an all-of-government approach to Indian country that President Biden has charged us with, and I just want to highlight the dedication and the commitment from both the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security to all of these issues. And so I thank you both for being here with us today to show that commitment and to speak on these important issues. So one of the most important things I think that we have done, when I was running for Congress, the missing and murdered Indigenous people's crisis, it was not necessarily a mainstream issue. It was probably important in some communities, but it wasn't across the country. And so Sharice Davids and I worked very hard to raise that issue up with all of our colleagues in the House, and we were able to get a bill passed, and we did some other things to make sure that more people were talking about this issue. Now, here at the Department of the Interior, since April 2021, we started our missing and murdered unit. It's 17 offices across 12 states. They're all staffed with investigators who are working on these cases. And to date, we have been able to solve 570 missing and murdered Indigenous peoples' cases. They have solved, thank you. I said we, but obviously I'm not the one doing the hard work. It's the incredibly dedicated staff that we have in those offices. They have also solved 90 missing persons cases, or that includes 90 missing persons cases and 6 murder cases. So the missing and murdered unit is working. We need to make sure that we can continue to support that unit so that it will continue to do as it is meant to do, and that is to help us make sure that our people do not go missing without a trace. So thank you, Bob. I think that's the thing I wanted to highlight.
Great. Well, thank you. Let me just start by saying what an honor and privilege it is to be in this room with all of you. Thank you so much for the leadership you provide and the moral guidance that you provide to all of us working here in the federal government every day. It's also always an honor to share the stage with the secretaries and with these amazing tribal leaders that I just had some time to spend in behind the scenes. And Bob, thank you for your partnership. So as the Attorney General said earlier today, the Department of Justice has taken great care to ensure that our efforts to advance public safety and to address the MMIP crisis are done with a kind of spirit of collaboration and cooperation with our tribal and federal partners. And we know how much work there is to do. As Secretary Haaland mentioned, the Justice Department and Interior Departments work together to develop this joint comprehensive law enforcement strategy to prevent and respond to violence against American Indians and Alaska Natives, including MMIP. And we submitted a report in July that it describes our strategies and next steps. And I just want to mention a few of these highlights, and these are actions that we are hard at work implementing. First, as the Attorney General said, the FBI and DOI, the BIA's Office of Justice Services, are entering a new MOU that is being announced during this meeting that is going to really clarify the investigative roles. It's advancing and promoting training for law enforcement personnel to have experience with MMIP. It's defining best practices for resolving crimes in Indian country. And the goal of this really is to have significant reform in the kind of coordination that we do across law enforcement. and to have a sense of shared responsibility to address crimes that are occurring in Indian country, including MMIP investigations. The second thing that I'm actually proud to announce right now is that today the FBI and the Office of Justice Services from BIA are going to be embedding law enforcement officers from the unit that Secretary Haaland was just describing, the missing and murdered unit, into FBI headquarters, into the unit at FBI headquarters that is charged with investigating Indian country crimes. And having MMI experienced staff actually embedded in these teams at the inception of an investigation is going to expedite and enhance how we are able to investigate and solve these MMIP cases. The third thing I wanted to lift up was that earlier this year, the Deputy Attorney General sent a memo to each of the 94 U.S. attorneys across the country stating as a top priority the need to address the disproportionately high rates of violence experienced by American Indians and Alaska Natives, including with a specific focus on the unacceptable rates of missing and murdered Indigenous persons. And this wasn't just a declaration in words only. There were very specific directives to each of the 94 offices to basically revise the operational plans about how we investigate these cases, the time that we're taking to investigate them, to prioritize victim advocacy and safety, to address unresolved cases, including MMIP, and to combat violence against women, and then to have accountability measures to make sure that we are collecting the data that we need to truly understand the breadth and scope of this problem. And so I think, at bottom for the Justice Department, we really view this work as reflective of all that we are learning from you every day, from the consultations that we do throughout the year, from what you are telling us you need in your tribes and communities. We view you as indispensable partners. We cannot do this work without you. And we also know, something that is top of mind, and Bob alluded to this, that a recent Supreme Court decision has really corroded some of this notion of the fundamental sovereign right of tribes to determine the appropriate means for securing public safety for their people and to govern their lands, and that's the Castro Huerta decision. And we've been listening to many of you the last few weeks to understand what the operational and legal impact is, and we are continuing to evaluate how we might be able to better clarify what the issues are presented, and to ensure that we can do everything we can to honor our treaty and trust responsibilities, continue to ensure and support public safety in Native communities, and respect your sovereign powers. So,
Thank you very much. We are very proud through our Center for Combating Human Trafficking to work with the Department of Interior and the Department of Justice to advance this critical mission. But I want to take a step back, if I can, for a moment, and first express, as Vanita did, how much of an honor it is to be able to be here with tribal leaders, tribal elders, and tribal members. Secretary Haaland, thank you so much for the privilege of being here and for the invitation. One of the most important things that we are doing in executing on the President's order is actually listening and learning. I remember when I visited Montana and engaged with tribal leaders there, they expressed concerns with respect to how we in the Department of Homeland Security were engaging with the sovereign tribal nations. And in certain aspects of our work, how we lacked cultural sensitivity, understanding the practices, the history, the traditions, and the needs of tribal members. And so one of our greatest areas of focus in following up on the President's executive order is to ensure that we do perform our work with cultural sensitivity. And cultural sensitivity is a shorthand way of respecting and honoring the dignity of sovereign tribal nations. And through listening and learning, we can do the work that we do, whether it is investigative work in support of the Department of Justice and Department of Interior, or provide much needed relief and support to tribal members through our Federal Emergency Management Administration, in whatever work we do in the Department of Homeland Security. And so what we have done is we have formed the first ever Tribal Homeland Security Advisory Council, where tribal leaders will engage directly with the leadership of the Department of Homeland Security, I included, so that they impart knowledge to us with respect to how we can work best with them. And the chairman, I'm very proud to say, will be the chairman of this advisory council. And I think that is incredibly, we're incredibly proud and honored that Chairman Yucupicio has agreed to serve in that capacity. We need to do our work in a way that respects the dignity of the tribal sovereign nations that we serve. And so I think that's a very important effort that we have underway, and we look forward to executing on it. Thank you, Bob.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Let's move right on to the chairman. Chairman Yucupicio, what are some of the strategies that Pascua Yaqui is implementing to deal with public safety in general and missing, murdered Indigenous persons in general? So take it away.
First of all, good morning. Yo soy ingeniero in my language. In Spanish, buenos días. As you can see, we are trilingual, and I will tell you that from our Creator, we ask Him for permission to live, to say a few words, to come and share our soul and our heart with you. Tribal leaders, if I have your permission to go ahead and speak, then I'll be okay with that. You know, first and foremost, we have been working very hard, and we knew that it's a complicated world, things were coming. And some of our elders said, you have to get ready. And some of us didn't understand what that meant until we started facing a lot of things, whether it was COVID, whether it was jurisdictional issues, where it was agreements with some of the entities like the cities, towns, governments, all the way around us. So that started the whole thing. But, you know, first we would like to thank the Department of Justice, the BIA, Department of Interior and Homeland Security for all the support they've given to our tribe. Every turn that we've taken and everything that we've done with their guidance has been so helpful and so, I think, respectful is the word. That's how we came to be with, you know, where we're at today. We also want to and have implemented, you know, SORNA, TLOA, VAWA 2013, VAWA 2022, and restored jurisdiction. We have invested in or investigated in over 100 domestic violence cases by non-Indians against Yaqui men and women. And that's amazing when you start thinking that it took a while to understand that why are they not picking these cases? Why are they not doing this? And why is that person still on the streets and he's still walking, even though he hurt somebody? And one of the cases that, you know, I came to be because it was a relative of mine. It was a non-tribal that pulled a lady in front of the kids, dragged her around the street, and stuck a screwdriver in her chin and all the way to the back. That hurts. That hurts us as a people, as tribe, as women, as families. And you're destroying not only that family, but every single attachment to it. Children, grandparents. And that's what we have to do. We have to all work together, tribes, agencies, on preventing all that and making our communities safer and safer. And that's why I think it's so important to sit here with these great people and you to get to that point where we now have jurisdiction. We now have been a pilot. We now need the way our own tribal people understand, and we know them better than anybody. So those are kind of things that we're doing. And then, you know, third, we work real close with the Department of Justice, the BIA, U.S. Attorney's Office. We have all these help and grants and stuff. They are out there. Just go ask. Don't be afraid to ask, because the thing you're doing is protecting your people. So with that, I turn it over to you, Bob.
Thank you, Chairman. That was really moving and important words that you shared with us. And when we talked yesterday, I was struck by how you were telling me about the way that you've cooperated and deal with other sovereigns in your jurisdiction to protect your people. And it's quite impressive to me. And also quite impressive is Chairwoman Gobin and how the Tulalip tribes, along with Pascua Yaqui, have been a leader in VAWA implementation, being one of the pilot tribes from 2013, and also a leader in pressing for the VAWA Reauthorization Act of 2022. And so I'm wondering if you can talk about both of those issues and what it's meant to Indian country from your perspective. Thank
you. Hashudabitsi, good morning. Shahelalos Sidsta, Shahelos is my traditional name. Tulalip was one of the first courts to exercise a special domestic violence criminal justice jurisdiction under VAWA 2013. And in the first year, we made 15 arrests. And however, one of the things that we noticed that was half of those cases involving the non-natives included crimes against our children. And they were not covered by VAWA 2013. The state and the federal government had jurisdiction over those crimes, and only one was prosecuted, and that was by the feds. So only one child saw justice, and it was a pretty horrific case that was brought forward. So all those other children never got to see justice for what happened to them. And that, breaks our heart that happened to all of those kids. We use this data along with other data that we had showing the importance to extend the protections to Native American victims of sexual violence, stalking, trafficking, and child abuse. And the VAWA Reauthorization Act of 2022 was a huge win for our public safety in our community, along with other tribal communities, especially for our women and children. But VAWA 22 was an important second step. Now we're looking to build on that momentum and do more. And when we think about our tribes took this initiative early on, and we have court systems that handle it. It's a learning curve. We've been working on this hard. But what about all the tribes that don't have this? And all the children and the women that are not seeing justice for the crimes that have happened. And the state or federal government are not picking up those cases. It breaks our heart to see that, but that's something that we need to work on together as tribes throughout the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Let me pick up on that point. We've talked about the importance of apprehending and holding the perpetrators responsible for their actions, but, and I'm going to start with this Associate AG Gupta and then go back to Chairwoman Gobin. What about the tribal victims, the actual victim and the families and the harm to the community? How can we better support those victims through our laws and institutions?
So there is a lot that we have learned over the last many years, including from some of these horrific stories, the under-enforcement of our laws, the under-protections, the lack of sensitivity, cultural sensitivity, linguistic sensitivity with tribal communities and victims. And the Justice Department has taken so much of that learning, and so much of it has come from all of you, and we are going to continue to hear from you, listen to you, learn from you how we may better serve victims in your communities as we put together an array of things to better support. One of the things that we've done that the chairman alluded to is the grants. We do have a lot of grants now that are dedicated for tribal communities. And Just this past year, our Office for Victims of Crime gave out 169 grants, about $116 million to close to 200 tribal and Alaska Native villages for all kinds of victim services and supports. It was to pay for the salaries of victim advocates, to support civil legal assistance for victims, to make sure that victims who needed emergency grocery and housing funds could access it and use federal funds to support this. We've been providing this funding to support greater culturally specific, linguistically appropriate victim services. So our grants are a really important way that we can support tribal-led, tribal-informed strategies to better support victims. And as you said, Chair, and I would welcome your help and all of your help to make sure that the word gets out about how we do our grants, how your communities can access them, and the like. We also just last month put out a revised guidelines for victim and witness assistance, really to make sure this is the first time since that we've been putting this guidance out. The last time we revised it was 10 years ago, but the first time that we have a specific section on how to best support victims in Native communities. And it has been informed by, as I said, all that you have told us over the years, but it includes things like additional privacy protections for child witnesses, best interview tactics for children who have been suffering abuse and the like. I know the Attorney General mentioned this new position that we have instituted that, like Secretary Mayorkas was talking about for DHS, is going to keep us honest and accountable. It's a new position to serve as our Native American liaison with our 94 U.S. attorneys' offices. And I know that that liaison is going to be doing extensive outreach, but to make sure, again, that we are able to best support what you need. And then I just want to end on what I thought was a really inspiring meeting in Alaska that happened in September, where as part of our effort to implement the 2022 reauthorization of VAWA, and I'm sure you've given a lot of applause for that reauthorization. We cannot lift our hands enough to say how important that legislation is. But there was over 600 people at this meeting in Alaska, about 55 tribal leaders who were giving us all kinds of testimonials, information, criticisms where they were deserved about how we can do better to ensure the full implementation, to make sure that we had culturally aware approaches and that we were seeking recommendations about how we can better get out our tribal funds program, how we can make sure that we are employing the right tactics to provide for the safety of Native women against sexual assault, sex trafficking, and the array of abuses and domestic violence that VAWA is really aimed at targeting. My hope is that we will continue this and continue that learning every day that we forge ahead in implementing VAWA. It's an incredibly important piece of legislation.
Thank you. Chairwoman Gobin?
So thank you for all of that, because that funding does mean a lot to help us. You know, we know there's federal funding sources for the prosecutors, judges, and victim advocates, but not always all the costs for the victim and their services. The tribe is always forced to pay out-of-pocket things to keep those victims safe, such as, you know, making sure that we got them into housing, cell phones, security cameras, even fencing in their yards to keep stalkers away, or, you know, whatever it may be. We've picked up those costs. And these are prosecution costs that you don't see through the lens of a courtroom, but they are very important for the safety of that victim. And each case is different. And while some of these costs are, you know, seem insignificant, they do add up. And I think our main goal is to provide those services just so we can keep our victims safe. Because when they're getting ready for whatever it may be in court, that's when a lot of people are lost, and we want to make sure that we don't lose other people and that we're taking care of protecting them. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, sticking with the tribal leaders, Chairman Can you talk a little bit about Pascua Yaqui and its law enforcement and public safety priorities going forward here?
You know, we have been blessed that, you know, for a long time, we have worked on all these implementations of everything. That's simply put. But simply we ask, we were a pilot tribe. We have gone through the ringer, we have gone through the ropes and everything else. It's time now for full jurisdiction from the tribes to deal with these issues. And that's what we simply ask. Our courts, our lawyers, all law-trained, everything, it rivals any court in the country, any town, any city, any government. Tribes, if you really, really support all this and you want to know a little bit more, we have a gentleman sitting out here by the name of Mr. Fred Urbina. Mr. Fred Urbina is an excellent resource to help and guide you as a tribe as to where are the contacts and what can you do. We are so blessed to have our own tribal attorneys, our own tribal courts, everything, and we are now ready. We just need Congress, members of the White House staff, and everybody in the interior to start looking at tribes are ready now for full implementation and jurisdiction of its own way of life. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Chairwoman? Chairwoman, go ahead.
Okay. So are we still talking about this one, or we're jumping on to the next? Okay, because I wasn't sure if
Talk
we
about
were.
whatever you want.
Next subject. Yeah, it's so important that there needs to be an Oliphant fix. We need to get this done. We should be able to prosecute anybody who's committing crimes within the boundaries of our reservation. We are sovereign nations, and we can handle it. Okay.
Awesome. This is great, and we're actually a little bit ahead of time here, so this is going to be, we're going to have lots of time for the audience to engage with us. And, you know, I guess since we're ahead, I'm going to ask both the chairman again, the chairman and the chairwoman to talk a little bit about Castro Huerta and how it's impacted your community and what you're doing in response to that decision that gives additional jurisdiction to the court.
Oh,
Chairman, go ahead.
I was saying ladies first, but all right, she said you go ahead
You
first.
down first.
All right, you know, first, we don't agree with the Castro Huerta decision. We started out as a PL 280 tribe, and we retroceded in 1985. We took over civil and criminal jurisdictions from the state in Arizona, Pima County. So this case may not even apply to us, in our opinion. So that's how we feel. But for us to maintain control and keep our community safe, and council adopted resolutions to exercise VAWA 2022, and we authorized our prosecutor's office to operate a tribal special deputy county attorney program through an IGA, and with the county attorney, our prosecutors will bring state cases into county court as appointed deputy county attorneys. That's what we've done to exercise our sovereign right.
All right, that's awesome. Chairwoman Gobin, anything to add about Castro Huerta and your dealings with that?
We're challenged on every aspect of our lives. Every bit of sovereignty is always a challenge, and we're ready to stand up together and to make sure that we're doing the right thing for our people. That's basically where we're at on everything. So,
terrific. Thank you very much. And now we've got some time for questions from the audience, and I see lots of hands out there. And I think Wizzy, you're in charge of this part of the panel, so please help me out.